Great. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Swartz Day, an international hackathon. We are coming to you live from San Francisco right now. We have people coming in from all over the world. They're going to be talking. The talks are going to start at noon. Before that, we're going to take some time to talk about some of the projects that we have here for you to work on. And the hackathon is starting as of right now, and we don't know, it's not going to end anytime soon. We're going to just keep going. And so you'll have a chance to enjoy the speakers today and reconnect with people and get started on a project of your choice. And then starting next week at on Saturdays, 2 p.m. San Francisco time, so 5 p.m. Eastern, or 1 in the morning in London, we're going to be having weekly hackathon meetings, and where we talk about hackathon stuff. And it's also a chance for you to work on other projects, activism. It may just be a support project. We're really encouraging people to share their ideas and work on different things. So the point is, we're going to get started and we're not going to stop. And I know that the Internet Archive has some projects. We'll have speakers, so there'll be like 1 or 2 speakers at the beginning, and then we'll open it up to a forum, and that will be happening every Saturday. So today we're going to be talking about the hackathon projects that are already set up and ready to go if you're interested. There is a speaker form that's at the top of the invite for questions. We'll be going back to that. And that's if you have a question for a speaker, or if you have a question about the hackathon, and that just lets us keep everything in one place so that we can get back to people in a timely manner. We're going to have an open channel going on all day that you can ask questions on. Also, the EFF is going to be telling us just in a moment about their Atlas of Surveillance project and how you can work on that, which is a crowdsourcing project for doing surveillance research about surveillance. And they're going to have a Zoom channel open up today that you can talk to them directly about if you want to work on that project. And again, you would tell us on the form, or let us know in an email. The form is really best, but we are trying to monitor all the channels, and we're trying to connect people directly into that Zoom channel later if you want to talk to them directly. So we've got a lot of things, a lot of people that are going to be talking today. We really got lucky as far as the enthusiasm behind today's talks. I'm very excited about it. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Dave Maass at EFF. He and Madison Vialpando, who worked on the Atlas of Surveillance project, which is very exciting. It was very exciting for us at the Aransas State Police Surveillance Project to have our data used with the data of others in a joint project with the EFF. The ACLU also put out some surveillance templates. And we're very excited to be a part of this community that is finally making such headway on transparency with regard to surveillance technologies. We can't tell our officials what to do. We can't explain to them why ordinances need to be passed to regulate law enforcement's use of these technologies if we can't prove that they exist in the first place. So you have this really hard chicken and egg problem when you're trying to convince your city council, for instance, about the need for regulating the surveillance that is used by your local police department if there's no evidence that it's even exists. So that's where we were a couple years ago, and we started the Aransas State Police Surveillance Project to work on that. Dave Maass is a co-founder of that project, and so much has happened in the last few years. It's really amazing. And the Atlas of Surveillance is an easy way to just go to your city on this interactive map and see what's going on in your town and then be able to act accordingly. So I will hand this over to Dave Maass. Thank you, Dave.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just want to make sure my mic's on. I'm sure people will wave at me and say, Dave, it's not on if I'm not on. My name is Dave Maass. I am a senior investigative researcher at the Electronic Frontier Foundation. I've been with EFF since 2013, and so Aaron Swartz Day has been a huge part of my career at EFF. I think I've attended almost every year since it started, and it's just always an incredible event. And I'm very, very grateful for Lisa to organize this event and also to make space for EFF and other groups to collaborate with all of you, particularly folks who are not necessarily in the Bay Area and who are joining us from the first time from around the world. So at EFF, I tend to focus on criminal justice and specifically police surveillance. You know, at EFF, we do a lot of things with different kinds of surveillance technology. Maybe that's international intelligence surveillance. Maybe that's the FBI. I tend to look specifically at the types of technologies that are used on communities by domestic law enforcement. So police departments and sheriffs. And I tend to focus on stuff in the United States just because that's where we are and those are the laws I understand how to wield. But the work that we do applies around the world. Other cities are also using technology internally on their people. And so hopefully if you're not from the United States, you can still learn from this project and learn how to apply it locally. So to give you a little bit of background about the Atlas of Surveillance, it really is set out to answer two questions that we get asked all of the time. And the first usually comes from researchers who are studying a particular surveillance technology. So maybe they're studying face recognition, or maybe they're studying license plate readers. And they'll come to us and they'll say, hey, can you tell us what are all the police departments around the country using drones? Or what are all the police departments that are using face recognition? And there really hasn't been a resource for a lot of these technologies. People have done a little bit on drones, or they've done a little bit on face recognition, but nothing really comprehensive for all of the technologies. Then the second question we get is usually locally based. So somebody who lives in San Francisco or Seattle or Oakland or Memphis, Tennessee, and they're curious about all the different kinds of technologies used by their local police. And so they'll call us and be like, do you know what the Memphis police have? Do you know what the Atlanta police have? And sometimes we have to research it, or sometimes we already know the answers. But we thought we would try to create a resource that draws from all of the research that everybody's been doing, that the ACLU's been doing, that some universities have been doing, what the Aaron Swartz Police Surveillance Project has been doing, and bring them under one roof. And on top of that, we wanted to come up with a crowdsourcing system that allowed a lot of students and a lot of volunteers to help us gather this research. So not only are they helping us contribute and build out a huge database of surveillance technology, they're also gaining experience in media literacy and research and learning how to be active in the type of research we do. And I should say that our project is only made possible because of a partnership with the journalism school at the University of Nevada, Reno. We've had several hundred students at the University of Nevada, Reno participate in this program. I want Madison to just wave and say that she's there. Just like say, hi, I'm Madison. Madison is one of the students who's been working with us for about, I think, 18 months now in this project. So, you can feel free to ask questions along the way. But let me just run you quickly through the project. Get a tiny bit of feedback. Hopefully that's just me. Okay. So first of all, I know some of you, if you're like me, are a little impatient and don't want to necessarily watch me talk. You need to play with things. So let me give you some things to play with. I'm going to be showing you atlasofsurveillance.org, which is the output of our research. But you're going to get a chance to play with the input side, which is a URL called reportback.eff.org. You are going to need a code, which is Aaron, all lowercase. And then in a bit, we're going to open up a Zoom. If you want to screen grab this, if not, we'll share this again in a little bit. But again, that's atlasofsurveillance.org, reportback.eff.org, and the group code is Aaron. Okay, so let me show you the Atlas. So when you come to the Atlas, there's a bunch of different features. But the first one is you can just put in any particular city and see what it is. Okay, hold on a second. All right. Actually, I'm just going to do the application window. You're going to have a little bit of a meta moment here for a moment as you see yourself. All right, you're good now. You can see the Atlas of Surveillance page. So when you come to the Atlas of Surveillance, you're going to see the chance to add in a location. I'm going to go ahead and add in, let's try Minneapolis. So you can put in Minneapolis and hit search the data, and it's going to create a list of all the technologies that we know are in the Minneapolis area. So it's actually going to return everything in Hennepin County because it wants to give you not just that particular city, but other agencies that are going to be around you. And it'll show you that they've got a real-time crime center, they've got gunshot detection, they've got a camera registry, their license plate readers, some video analytics systems, body-worn cameras, and you can actually come up here to this part and download this as a data set on its own. So you can play with it and manipulate it and do whatever you want. But let's say you just wanted to see who in Minneapolis has license plate readers. Let's do Hennepin County. So we'll do Hennepin County. Actually, let's do Maricopa County. Let's move to Arizona now for all of you Arizona hackers. So Arizona, you do that for license plate readers, and you can see all of the agencies that in the Maricopa, Phoenix metropolitan area that are using license plate readers, and there'll be links for each one that cite our sources. But if you wanted to know, let's say, just face recognition, and we want to do face recognition across the United States, you can leave that blank, hit search the data, and you'll see we have 371 items that you're going to be able to explore or download. And you can even, if you just wanted to sort by state, we could do the state of Florida, and you can search the data, and it'll return things for Florida as well. There's also a map version, and if the map isn't showing up, please let me know. But you can see this map visualization that allows you to understand how this works geographically. It's a little bit overwhelming when you have all of our 6,100 data points at once. So I do recommend looking at this one at a time, where you can click over here and you can see everyone that's using body-worn cameras. You can see everyone who's using drones, although using Jitsi makes my computer run a little slow. If you wanted to do gunshot detection, it'll do that. So there's like a nice way for you to visualize it. And you can also get the same summaries that we had on the other page if you just click on this, and it'll show you that gunshot detection with the links and the quick sentence, but then you can like scroll through and see what else is around there. Some other things, cool things in here is we just launched, timed for Aaron Swartz Day, because we try to release something cool around this time anyways. We have a data library now that has all of the data sources, a lot of the data sources going into the Atlas of Surveillance, as well as like other cool data sets about surveillance that are international or about issues that we aren't necessarily covering, but would be of interest to anybody. So for example, we have a public safety drone data set from Bard College in New York. We've got a cool project from Australia that maps China's tech companies and their influence around the world, including face recognition and artificial intelligence. We've got the Carnegie Endowment did a map of AI technology around the world. So there's a bunch of stuff. And here's the Aaron Swartz Day Police Surveillance Project. And you can go and click over and you can see the original data from there. But we also just released a report on real-time crime centers yesterday. We haven't fully promoted it yet. We wanted to get it up so I could show you today, but we'll be promoting this a little bit more heavily next week. But real-time crime centers are these high-tech headquarters where all the different surveillance technologies are feeding into one location, where there are all sorts of analysts who are watching real-time video, doing face recognition, looking at social media, looking at gunshot detection and license plate readers, all of it coming in on one. And we've written profiles about 7 of these places. And we'll be adding more in the future, but you can get a sense of what's inside the crime center, what they've built in the community to feed into the crime center, as well as a lot of the controversies surrounding these real-time crime centers. So I highly recommend taking a look at that. All right, so I'm going to shift now to showing you what it looks like to collect this data. So if you go to Report Back, it's a very simple site that we built. And if you've done some research sprints with the EFF in the past, you're going to recognize some of these techniques. But really, you just come in and you put in your email address, and then you put in that group code. So in this case, it's going to be Aaron. And then you can select any technology we have 3 different technology assignments that you can do right now. I recommend for the first one to try body-worn cameras because they're often the easiest to find information on. And it's a good way to start. And then social media monitoring is going to be the most difficult. So you can actually work your way up. You can do a few body-worn cameras, you can do a few license plate readers, and then you can do some social media monitoring. But a lot of these are just testing your ability to use Google. Like you often hear the term Google dorking for using some of the advanced search techniques on Google. That's what we're talking about here. We have come up with a whole series of 20-minute assignments. These aren't going to take you very long, but it will help build out the database. So I'm going to select body-worn cameras. I'm going to show you what happens. You get a page like this. And so it gives you a little bit of instructions, but what we're looking at here is we're looking for body-worn cameras. We believe the vendor that makes the body-worn cameras is Axon. Axon used to be Taser, for those of you who aren't familiar with that. And the place we're looking is the town of Groton, Connecticut. So we want to know whether the Groton, Connecticut Police Department are using body-worn cameras. And so we want you to spend 20 to 30 minutes looking. We don't want you to go down the rabbit hole. If it takes more than 20 minutes, we can assign somebody with a little bit more experience or with a little bit more time to do a deeper dive search. One of the cool things about body-worn cameras, though, is that there's usually news articles, there's usually something on a government website, and there's usually something on social media. And in an ideal situation, we have maybe 3 links documenting each technology. Sometimes we're just going to get 1 link. But with body-worn cameras, the cool thing is you can visually identify this on a police officer's person. And since most police departments have Facebook pages, you can often just go and visually identify it. So let's see what happens if I'm looking for the Groton Police Department. So I'm going to go to Google. Now, you can use whatever search engine you want. Obviously, Google does a very good job, or let's say not a good job, but a very thorough job of scraping the entire internet. So there's going to be a lot more results on Google than maybe some of the other search engines out there. But I wouldn't discourage you from trying DuckDuckGo or anything else. It all depends on what your threat model is and what you're most comfortable with. What we'll just put in Groton Police and body-worn cameras. Real simple. Sometimes I'll use quotation marks to limit it, but let's just start with that. Right off the bat, boom, we've got a news article. And we've got another news article. And another news article. So we're seeing a lot of news articles here. Let's try, I just want to see if there is, try it with quotation marks to see if we get any other different results. We're getting actually the Atlas of Surveillance, but that I know that they're not in there. So let's see. Let's just try Groton and body-worn cameras. And, let's see where we got. Here we go. I'm seeing something for policies. And let's see if the Groton Police Department has a Facebook page. So let's go Facebook and see. Oh, yep, there we go. Actually, I'm seeing now that there's a Groton, Massachusetts and a Groton, Connecticut. So I'm going to want to be careful to make sure I'm getting the right Groton. Groton. Anybody knows what it's spelled? I'm sorry. I mean, how it's pronounced. I'm really sorry if I'm mispronouncing. Groton. Sorry about that. Groton. So here we go. We have a news article about Groton saying yes, and then we have Groton going live with it. So they said they went live with body-worn cameras. I actually think that's a better news article because it shows that they actually went live, and it shows me that the brand is indeed Axon. Here's another article, and then here we have a policy. And then if I come over here to Facebook, this is Connecticut. I can click on photos. And I can just kind of scroll, and usually there's some like humorous pictures of cops that you come across along the way. But you kind of click on here, and you can see that here's a bunch of pictures of police officers wearing those body-worn cameras. So I've got three. Those pink masks are pretty funny. Okay, so here's some. You can see those body-worn cameras. I'm going to pick the one with the dog just because I'm really sensitive to dogs. I really like dogs. So I've got 3 links. I've got proof that the town of Groton Police Department has body-worn cameras. I've confirmed they have Axon body-worn cameras. At that point, I come back to report back, and I got to find my link here. I come back to report back, and there's a Google form here that you open, and you just kind of go through the Google form answering questions. about the links you found, what you discovered, and when you hit submit at the end. I'm not going to go through all this because this is going to just take a bunch of extra time and be boring to you to watch me do this. But I'm sure all of you have used forms before, and you'll be able to figure it out. So that's the basics of it. I'm going to go ahead and actually put back that slide. So you've got again, atlassurveillance.org, reportback.eff.org, and that group code Aaron. And then I don't really know the best way to provide the Zoom link. Maybe Lisa has some ideas, but we'll start that up once we've come to a good breaking point in these introductions. So with that, I'm going to just go ahead and stop sharing, and I think y'all can see me again. So if there are questions or whatever you've got, I can explain more. Just let me know.
Okay, great, Dave. Thanks a lot. Was Madison going to talk to, or
I think she wants to talk later, but she can. Madison, if you want to say something, just go ahead and jump on. But Madison will be joining us in the sort of offshoot room to help people work their way through the process.
Okay. All right. Great. So Will Howe is going to talk a little bit about the timeline project while we look at questions, and then after Will, we'll see if there's some questions and come back to Alice of Surveillance questions at that time. Okay, great. Okay, everybody, this is Will Howe. He is Howe's. Sorry, he is a college student in Oregon who's been coming to Aaron Swartz Day for a few years, and he's been working with me. He's a co-founder of something called the Aaron Swartz Day Timeline Project, which is a chance to go back and really look into Aaron's life. We're trying to make a timeline of it. We're trying to fit the pieces of the Pacer project and his other projects and have them easily available in a timeline that will be on the website, and it will be in the virtual reality museum that we're putting together. And I will hand it over to Will. Thank you.
Cool. Yes, thank you so much, Lisa. Yeah, it's so good to be back again this year. The first time I ever came to Aaron Swartz Day, I was a senior in high school, and my parents brought me because I happened to see I think an advertisement. Maybe I think the EFF may have posted something about it, and so I saw it was happening. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, Mom and Dad, like, can I go? And we were able to fly out and check it out, and it was so just incredible. And I've come back every year since. So thank you, Lisa, for consistently putting on these awesome events. Especially now you've pulled it together, and that's awesome. So like Lisa said, my name is Will Howe. I'm a sophomore at Reed College here in Oregon, and I'm also an occasional web developer. And yeah, so Lisa, she reached out to me about this timeline project, and I was totally interested because I love rabbit holes, and I love learning more about Aaron Swartz, and so I was thrilled. So the kind of way that she did it is she gave me a series of images that she knew that she sort of wanted to work with, and it was my job to find those images, find where they came from, find the story behind them, and really sort of start piecing together information about where Aaron was at certain times and what he was up to. And so the first thing I did here, let's see, I'm gonna share my screen. Oh geez, looks like I have to enable the permissions. Geez, well, we'll see. It looks like I'm sharing something. It's working. Oh, brilliant. Okay, cool. So I do believe right now is visible my this markdown document, and so I felt it was somewhat appropriate to sort of collect all of my information in a markdown document, given that Aaron was one of the founders of that spec, And so, yeah, I mean, really, for every image, you can see these first two images that Lisa had shared with me. I wasn't able to find anything on, so there's not a whole lot of interesting things to share there. But here at image 3, you can see, you know, I would source out or seek out the date, the location, all this good stuff. And then where it really got fun was sort of figuring out the story behind all of this. And sometimes, for example, this image here is a Flickr image. And can you see this image right now? Perfect. So yeah, this is a picture of Aaron with Ada, and it's on Flickr, as many of these images ended up being. And yes, Quinn Norton posted this image, and then I think I actually then found a post on the blog that corresponded with this image. That then there was sort of a tongue-in-cheek business opportunity afoot here in this picture, and so I was able to source that and then include that. And that's just, you know, one of many of these pictures. There are lots of pictures. This is from a you know, an event Aaron was speaking at in 2008. Again, there was another event from 2006. This is just Day at the Mall, I think, with Quinn and Aaron. Just all of these, you know, random things that Aaron happened to be doing or seeing, and it was my job to find some meaning in all of that. And it's very interesting. I never had, I think, you know, the opportunity to have met Aaron, but I do. He feels almost like an old friend, just because I feel like I've tracked down so much of his life digitally. But it really, I mean, it's been a real pleasure just getting to sort of find out not just sort of, you know, some of his own history, but then to be able to document it and contribute it towards this larger project that Lisa is working on. Has been a real pleasure. One, I think, big takeaway that I've had from working on this project is just sort of the stark difference between doing this project for someone who, you know, was prominent sort of in the early 2000s versus doing it for someone right now in 2020. Just because, I mean, you can see that, you know, Flickr was kind of the hot thing. And so a lot of people would be posting their stuff on Flickr. A lot of events would post all their stuff on Flickr. And I think it's a very different scene in 2020. I think that, you know, more people are just posting things to Twitter or Facebook or, you know, whatever other source. And oftentimes I think that makes it a lot harder to track these things down, and especially on like Instagram or something, you know, I think a lot of times that's where images will end up. But Instagram is just such a, I feel like it's such a mess in terms of archiving things, because it really is also temporary and accounts can get shut down and stuff. But there is more of a permanence to Flickr. At least that's sort of what it feels like, given that, you know, I'm finding these images from 12, 15 years ago in full resolution with all the EXIF data and stuff. And it really is an interesting, I guess, observation about archiving then versus now and what the sort of standards are. But yeah, I mean, that's sort of been this project. I've worked on it on and off, and it's been a pleasure. And that's, I suppose that's all I have to say. So thanks so much.
All right, thanks a lot, Will. Much appreciated. So that's one of the projects that you can work on if you'd like. Basically, just contact us either using the form, which is at the top of the invite, which I could just also just let you know that it's tiny URL. Sorry. Here we go. It's tinyurl.com. It's just /ASD speakers questions. And it's also at the top of the Aaron Swartz Day, and we've tweeted it out and put it on Facebook. And that just helps us over the course of the day keep all the questions in one place. Also, if you want to let us know about that you're interested in the Hackathon project. So the EFF has a Zoom call that's open, but we're waiting for people to contact us and let us know that they want to participate rather than tweeting out the information. But we're ready to give you that information right away. Twitter might be easiest. A lot of people have been contacting me on Twitter to let me know they're interested. And the idea is for us to connect over the course of the day. Yeah, I didn't see any other questions come in for Dave yet. For the Atlas of Surveillance stuff, most people are just asking about participating in that. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the other projects at Aaron Swartz Day, just to let you know what's going on. My internet isn't that great, so I'm going to be able to play some videos from our streamer. Grant Ellis is helping us stream today. Thank you very much for that, Grant. That's why we're able to bring it to you on YouTube and Facebook. So the Police Surveillance Project, as you know, we were talking about a moment ago, is where we have a number of templated letters for 12 different pieces of surveillance equipment. So, you know, predictive policing, FLIRs, facial recognition, stingrays, all sorts of fun stuff, drones. And because I learned from Tracy Rosenberg at Oakland Privacy, she's another founder of the project, it's better to ask for one piece of equipment at a time, information on one piece of equipment at a time. And so what we did was we wrote these templates so that you can use the Muckrock website and very easily you type in the name of the agency, such as, you know, Sacramento County Sheriff, and it will let you just cut and paste the letter right to that agency, and then it sends the follow-up letters. So it keeps the clock. It's been 2 weeks, time to send a follow-up, time to send a follow-up. And this was really came in handy when some of the agencies, such as the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department, which is one of the reasons why I bring that up, is because we actually just sued them this last year successfully over the summer. They didn't want to give us their, or for whatever reason, hadn't given us their federal memorandums of understanding. And so we sued them, we won, we got those, we're about to release those documents. We kind of wanted to look through it first and pull out the relevant documents before we made those live. But we have started the next phase of the Aaron Swartz Day Police Surveillance Project in that way. So this happens when we wait a year and a half to hear back for something that they're supposed to get back to us in a timely manner of, it's supposed to be a few weeks, but really we wait a year before we look back and think, uh-oh, they didn't get back to us in a timely manner. And then we will contact them and put pressure on the agencies in different ways. We're just trying to get the information, and when we get the information, we post it and move on. So this has been really useful. California just had a privacy ordinance that went into effect this January of this year. Unfortunately, I think Prop 24 passed, and which actually took away from a lot of the privacy protections that we just got in January of this year. A lot of people thought they were voting for a privacy initiative. They were actually voting for something that took away from privacy protections that we had just received. But anyway, onward. And so that project is either something in your state. So we did it on purpose. I just filed my first public records requests in other states. We had an indigenous peoples tribe in Nevada that asked me to file some requests for them, and I filed a bunch of requests in Portland over the chemical weapons that were rumored to be being used on protesters there, and also for these federal memorandums of understanding, which are coming into play, especially with these nameless, faceless federal agents that are showing up in rent-a-cars and picking people up illegally. And it turns out that the local law enforcement is getting deputized by the Department of Homeland Security. And that's where these agents are popping up out of nowhere And we learned about this from the federal memorandums of understanding that we got in our public records requests in a lot of border towns in California, where they would deputize local law enforcement and make them instant ICE agents and then go on raids and things like that. So our work is really turning out to be super relevant and super timely. And I just want to thank Dave at the EFF and also Tracy Rosenberg at Oakland Privacy, and now she's a part of our project too. And it's just been really nice to learn from these people, and we were just trying to be useful and trying to help the people that were already getting a lot done, and it's working. And so that's a project really easy for you to jump in anytime and contact us so we can help you with that. The next project that I'm going to talk about is the SwartzManning Virtual Reality Museum. I have a video to show you, sort of like a little tour of it. And then we're going to circle back around and talk to Dave again and give some information about the crowdsourcing. I have some questions that I'm going to ask if other people haven't tuned in and asked questions. And again, it's no problem if you just feel like you're ramping up on the projects and trying to figure out what you're going to do. The whole point of this morning's session was just to let you connect with Dave and myself and Will if you wanted to work on the timeline project. And we also have someone coming from Papermache, which is an open source academic journal project that you can work on. And the idea was just to make ourselves available to you before the speakers started to help with those connections. But it's really easy to just connect with us, especially Dave is, what's your Twitter again, Dave? It's just massive, right?
It's massive with an extra A. So MAASSIVE.
Okay, great. So at massive is the best way to get a hold of him. And I'm monitoring the Aaron Swartz Day at Aaron Swartz Day Twitter channel. And again, if you go to aaronswartzday.org, you'll see where the forum is. And so without any further ado, Grant, if you could play the video just to give you an idea of what you're going to see. So this video is shows you where you go if you launch into VR chat to see our little prototype museum that we have in there. And we have a number of letters and photos. We've got a video of Timothy Leary playing, and this has a video of Alex Peak, who is our lead programmer on this project, and he is explaining the programmatic system that we're building. And the idea is that we want to be able to populate rooms in a virtual reality museum from a spreadsheet, ideally pulling items from the Internet Archive. Wouldn't it be great if we could just take a collection of items and write a script that went through them and populated them into a room and did it dynamically? So you could just be constantly adding to the spreadsheet and repopulating the rooms, you know, when things are instantiated. And the idea is that we would make this code freely available for artists and nonprofits, and not corporations. And there's a lot going on with virtual reality and corporate, sort of a corporate takeover that happened, and power grabs that's going on. Ryan Sternlicht is going to talk about privacy in virtual reality, which you don't hear a lot about. And the battle is not lost yet, and he'll be talking more about it. So right now, we're going to watch this very tiny, it's like a 2-minute video, just to be able to show you a little peek into the virtual reality museum. And that's at aaronswartzday.org/VR. And the code is there. And just contact me and I will meet you in VR chat and give you a personal tour anytime. So let me know if you want to do that, if you want to work on the exhibit. And again, the timeline exhibit that Will was just talking about is one of the exhibits that will be inside the museum. There's also some artists that we're working with, one artist named Jen Mack and another artist named Erin Turner, a fractal artist. And we're going to see some work from her a little later, right before the speakers go on. And so we're trying to make an art gallery, museum, and funhouse, we're calling it. And we have a lot of different ideas, and the sky's the limit. So you could take our code, build your own room that you can go to from our main museum. We've got a garden working on. We're working with an exhibit having to do with outside for an AR, or maybe it's all XR at this point. But the idea is you would go into the virtual reality museum, learn more about the outside somewhere, and then get some coordinates maybe to go with your phone back out of VR into the garden and whatnot, and back and forth. So Grant, go ahead and play that video real quick, and then I'll be back. Thank you.
Okay. Since we're going to be sitting here and chatting for a little while, first I think what I'd like to know is just to studying the nervous system.
I want to make it so that you can designate the layout of the museum procedurally, right?
10 books.
So if you put a bunch of exhibits in the same room,
know as much and more about
they would
works.
like, see how this is kind of like a squarish room, right? And you have like different walls. So if you put 4 or 5 things in a sequence, you could say this is like, you know, room 7, number 1 out of 8 or whatever. And they would go in the sequence that you specified. And if you want to change that, like you're like, oh no, these should be in a different room. All you got to do is put in the numbers in the spreadsheet. And then when I build it, it'll take whatever you put in the spreadsheet and it'll rearrange the museum magically. And that means if you had a huge archive, if you had like 100 exhibits, it would take 5 seconds to build the whole museum. It would just automatically put all the rooms in. But as a curator, you want to be able to control like the order and like the layout. So, you know, if we want to do a custom room that's not procedural, we can still do that. But it would be nice if by default, you just kind of specify a room and an order. And when you come in the room, you could kind of show the numbers, kind of like if there's an order, like if it's a narrative of beginning, middle, and end, you want to be able to show people that, right? Okay, so the landing space can mention all 3 and introduce everything, and have seating and a social space to give talks and have gatherings. So that's where you start out by default. You don't have to go anywhere. You just sit down and, you know, you're listening in on whatever's happening. But then we can have doors that go, so let's say we're standing here. So there could be like a door that says Aaron, a door that says Chelsea, and a door that says Tim. And then they each go on their own little sections.
But I have a certain empirical...
So yeah, just to give you a little idea of what it looks like in there, and we're really excited about working on this and what we've been able to get done with it. Let us know. The sky's the limit, whether you're an artist that wants to bring your stuff into VR, or whether you're a programmer, or whether you're a researcher, or whether you just want to help get the word out. There's really so many things, you know, that you could help with. So. Dave, I wanted you to just let people know again what I'm actually going to let you tweet out accordingly what you think would be the best information, and I'll retweet it on Aaron Swartz Day. And
I think you've got a tweet on Aaron Swartz Day, which is fine. Just leave it there for now.
What?
Oh, I saw one. I saw a tweet on Aaron Swartz Day.
Oh, that was with the picture, right? That was
Yeah.
with the picture, right?
Sure. let me.
That's for the questions you mean, right? Right. Okay. So it's tinyurl.com/ASD speakers questions. So, and if you go to aranswartzday.org, it's on the front page. So aranswartzday.org has everything on it today. It's got the link at the very top. And aranswartzday.org is the easiest way to get links to everything over the course of the day. So the question I was going to ask Dave was just how this would work, exactly what people would be working on in terms of when we say, I guess it's sort of a larger, big picture kind of question in terms of when we say crowdsourcing, a crowdsourcing project, we're talking about finding information about equipment that the police might be using, or the sheriff, or whoever the agency in question is to sort of point us in the right direction of what they might be using, or maybe find something to counter when they say no responsive documents.
No, I mean, so when we talk about crowdsourcing, we mean opening up our research methods to a large audience. And so we can have a lot of people contributing little pieces of research to create a much bigger project. That's what we mean by that. But what we're going to be doing, what is the crowd doing? The crowd is engaging in what we would call open source research. And by open source, we mean looking across the internet for publicly available news articles, press releases, government public records, things that we can link to, essentially links that we can do that confirms whether they have the technology or not. Now, what often happens is, down the road, if we don't find that kind of information, maybe we file a public records request through the police surveillance project, or through Muckrock, or through various other means. We can always follow up with that later. But there are something like 18,000 police departments in the country, and I think we have data related to about 3,300 of those agencies. So keep in mind, we've got a lot of agencies to go through, and that's why we have all these micro assignments. There are a lot of news organizations writing about this stuff. There are a lot of government websites that are publishing documents. So there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that we can grab without having to go through the Freedom of Information Act or California Public Records Act process.
Okay, great. All right. So yeah, and you're right. I forgot that I had put that image out already. So are we going to leave that up? Do you feel like that's okay for now?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. If it's a problem, it's a problem. We'll deal with it if it becomes a problem.
Okay. So again, if we have to shut it down for some reason, that's all that happened. Just contact us. Just DM us. But I think it'll probably be okay. And the idea is to be available for questions today and connect, even if we're just sort of keeping information for later, after the speakers. We always have this dynamic when we've got a hackathon going on at the same time, where we have speakers talking and people want to do both things, and it's no problem. So that's why we sort of have the hackathon ongoing. So anything else, David, that you can want to let people know in terms of how long will you be on the Zoom today, for instance?
Yeah, so Madison and I will be on the Zoom until about 1 o'clock. Now we'll leave the group code will still be active through the rest of the day, but we may need to deactivate it tomorrow in case we just don't want to leave it like the door unlocked for long periods of time, because there hackers do it for the lulz. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of hackers doing it for the lulz, but it is a thing out there. So we want to make sure that we don't leave it open to attack. But you can do this on your own. You can do it with us. It's sometimes really fun to hang out and just do these little research projects. And I just also want to plug that this afternoon, Madison is going to be giving a talk about police departments who have had their surveillance systems or their data systems hacked, and what that means for public safety and what that means for data collection. So I highly recommend attending that later this afternoon.
Okay, great. All right, thank you very much. So next, we're going to hear from Benjamin from a project called Papermache. Benjamin, available? There he is. Okay, great. And yeah, you're muted.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here.
For a few minutes and let us know about the project and whatever else you'd like to say. Great.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a project that I've been working on for many years. I started this back in undergrad, and I'll actually share my screen so you guys can see it. Again, yeah, thanks for bringing this on, Lisa. This is a fantastic event. I'm happy to be here. My name is Benjamin Fennickson. I am a benevolent entrepreneur is what I call myself. And this was like my first ever project that I started. And it was initially a way to have graded research papers available to a peer community for discovery and interaction without getting kicked out of school. So what I wanted to do was, back in 2013, was create sort of a competitor to like academia.edu and ResearchGate and Mendeley, but was designed to facilitate and accommodate undergraduate research, which at the time was a very topical and relevant, subject for me because I was an undergraduate. But it was the only sort of subject that also dealt with things like plagiarism and, on a scale that, could jeopardize an academic reputation and ruin somebody's like chances of going to grad school and getting a job and these types of things. Now, obviously, higher level education faces these issues also, but, undergraduates had sort of that avoidance of undergraduate research because they were often put into like, required classes and the research was assigned to them. So the problem that I wanted to solve was once the professor grades that research and hands it back to them, their choices are put it into an attic, put it into a filing cabinet, put it into a trash can. So to compromise, Papermache was designed and developed with the assistance of a professor named Dr. Ludwig Slusky, who is in the Communication Science, Information Sciences Research Department. And he helped me kind of work through the nuances of like, is this a paper mill? Is this a way to something that would jeopardize student reputation? So we eventually decided to settle on the Creative Commons research. So students log in, they create an account, and they can create like a portfolio, which is a substitute for the trash can or the filing cabinet. And the point is to network with similar students and their work that they're producing. And at its peak, we had over 100 pieces of work and over 100 users that were actively, from all different types of areas of research and all over the world. So long story short, we ran out of money and the project fell apart. So we decided to rebuild it with better technology and figuring out how to actually keep the lights on and, have some sort of monetization strategy. And I'm still looking at advertisements and sales. So here's like an example of some of the work that we've listed, which is all listed under Creative Commons. So part of the terms of uploading this work is that the student would agree to the terms that are available. So here is a colleague of mine who's uploaded like his entire portfolio. Now he's a professor, but you can see the quality of work here if it'll load. And unique to our platform, we had a qualification vetting capability in the form of votes. So just like Reddit, upvote, downvote, yays or nays. And there's a lot we could do with this. So we could, when we go to search for papers, we could sort by upvote, rank different types of upvoted, downvoted papers. And also you can see the full document. So this work was like willingly contributed to the you know, the database. But basically, you know, you could have access and highlight and comment, and the citation would automatically generate in the style that you needed. So if you're working on work and needed to cite a piece of work, you could select MLA, and it would, you know, generate the citation automatically in MLA format. So that's something that we still need to build in. That capability is something we still need to build into this, but you can still comment on the work in text, annotations. The purpose is really, and that's something also we need to build, but basically, you know, the peering capability, you could peer me on Papermache was sort of like the phrase that we were trying to get out. And that was sort of the idea. The goal was to generate a community of students that are actively engaged in each other's work, just like their professors are doing. Now, there are questions like, well, what if they're not qualified? You know, what if they lack integrity or the intelligence, the cognitive capability of producing quality work? And we just wanted to connect, you know, maybe potentially community college students with potentially Ivy League students and facilitate that discussion, for example, or students in, you know, biology study, you know, with students in chemistry. So that social network kind of effect was what we were looking to do at the undergraduate level. So, you know, if you're interested in helping us, that would be a lot of, you know, that'd be very fantastic. We've got a few things that we need to do on this. But basically, most importantly is a Maass, you know, get some really good work on there, that students are able to cite freely, they're able to comment and interact with, and they're able to preserve, most importantly, the hard work that they've put into it. You know, because after a few weeks, you write that 20 pages on the Fall of Rome, it's got to go somewhere. And so it should go on Papermache, because it probably won't go on, you know, anywhere else. You know, like other websites probably won't accept that type of work. So are there any questions, or should I continue?
Just continue, please. Thank you.
Okay, sure. So yeah, and I had a little presentation that I pulled up, or that I built. You know, these are some of the you know, the ambitions that we had for this organization, which was, you know, initially a for-profit entity. We wanted to be the bridge door for the internet or the supporting docs. So no matter the discipline you're in, no matter the you know, the subject that you're studying, this was going to be something that would, you know, certifiably have some sort of information that would be of benefit to you. Because as we know, you know, academic publishing has an opportunity and it has a cost. So we all know at Aaron Swartz, Diego Gomez is another great example of being acquitted. But the whole process of peer review, publish, source grant, apply for grant, that kind of cycle of academic research and publishing was what we wanted to, you know, slip into as a kind of a publishing platform that was assuming that there was money available for studying, and it was being assigned and mandated. This was basically glorified homework, but it still had value. And, you know, a lot of us are college educated. We can all remember how much work went into the work that put into undergraduate that stayed with us potentially throughout our academic careers as we matriculated. And if you were lucky, you would go to grad school in studying a similar subject that you studied as an undergraduate. And it's possible that your undergraduate research could still be relevant as a graduate student. So what we wanted to do is really understand, instead of publish, get a grant, look at the results, apply for the grant, receive the funds, we wanted to quantify the reputation, conduct a study, and then the published results. So this capability you know, there was a bit to like the amount of work that could be uploaded to this not really a repository, this portfolio. We wanted to have robust search capabilities that could be sorted by parameters. So if you're looking for a certain paper, you can select by the most viewed, the most commented, the most cited, hot, maybe trending papers. But you know, again, we're not directed at one particular subject. We're not interested in one particular you know, industry, like field of study. It's everything. It's interdisciplinary by design, and we want to be able to facilitate that cross communication between subjects. So we want biology students to talk to chemistry students. We want you know, law students to talk to politics students, and et cetera, because you know, that type of cross communication breaks down those barriers of the ivory tower and produces a lot more clear, coherent you know, reasoning instead of you know, just staying within your lane as far as academic research goes. So the process is really simple. You can upload, it can be a PDF, and if it's not a PDF, we can convert it for you. But we've got some work on here now. This is like the rebuilt version. This is what was created from the lessons that we had when we first had work on here. Unfortunately, all the work originally was deleted, but we definitely took the best practices and have applied them to this. So you can create a profile, you know, fill out information about, you know, your academic career, your research interests, and then, you know, you'll be able to have a score, which is comprised, and I can show you the math behind this. It's comprised of like the average upvotes and downvotes that you've cast, and then the average upvotes and downvotes that you've received. So everyone's going to have like sort of a reputation score that will allow you to gauge the quality of their contribution to different papers. So here's my peers' work. If that loads. So my peer here has, for example, 650 score, because her paper, Never Changing Education Will Eventually Destroy You, you know, has 650 upvotes, yays, towards yay. So you can look at her work, and this is just an example. You know, this is sample work we were using to make sure that all the technology is functional. So you can highlight and then comment, which we'd like to do. We still need to fix that part. The repo is located at right here, and it's all uploaded onto an AWS server. We have like a PEM file, so if you're looking for that, we can get that to you. But the repo is open source. It's an open source project. You can fork it. You can feel free to work on it. Here's the code here. I had some help in developing this, and was very fortunate to have people, you know, push contributions. The latest was like a few years ago, so it hasn't been worked on in a while. Actually, maybe 10 months ago. So the latest, it hasn't been worked on in a while, but we still need like README documents, and we still need supporting docs for like this repo. So if you want to contribute to, that would be a really great idea. And feel free to check out the video. The video was shot for our first version, and I'll play that for you.
Okay, and Ben, for people to participate, so they just go and make an account, and then if they want to participate on the code, they would. Do you have your code available somewhere, and they can contact you?
Yeah, yeah. If they wanted, absolutely right. So you can check out the video if you feel like it. Create an account, contact me. I can put up my contact information in, I guess, the chat. Would that be the best place for the contact information?
Sure. Give it to me and I'll tweet it out. And
Super.
and you're welcome. You're welcome to show the video. I wasn't trying to
okay.
Interrupt you.
Okay.
Doing that, I just wanted to make it clear how people can participate.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll give you my contact information.
Okay,
There's
great.
a couple features that I would like to have, would be nice to have, basically, which is the Creative Commons license built so that when you're uploading papers, you run into it and you have to accept it before the paper's actually contributed to your portfolio. And then fixing the commenting and the citation styles. And then other than that, it's mainly cosmetic. But yeah, here's the video. This was shot for our first version.
Students research by collecting, organizing, and publishing completed undergraduate work, offering a platform for students to read and cite the findings and perspectives of their peers. Students can upload their completed work and share it with the community, retaining ownership rights that protect their intellectual property, a first for undergraduate publishing. Papermache allows students to discover better information. Instead of visiting dozens of websites to complete one assignment, a user can find all their resources in one place on Papermache. After your paper upload, each work will be granted a Creative Commons attribution license that will allow you to retain publishing rights to your work. This will effectively leave you in charge of your own promotion, earning credit for your hard work. This work will also enter into the portfolio database for review, rating, and feedback from your peer community. Papermache is what we have been waiting for. From subjects such as art and biology to economics and sociology, students can finally feel the thrill and relief of discovering new information found by their peers. At Papermache, we believe everyone should share their research papers because we are all students, and together, we're better.
Right. So it's it's a little dated. So if anyone has experience in these types of animation videos, it'd be nice to also have that updated. It's this goes back to 2013, but we originally built this in Drupal, believe it or not. So that's dinosaur technology. It's in Rails these days. And I think we have an HTML5 front end. And then we have I think we probably need a better database too, but everything's on AWS right now. But yeah, I'll tweet, that's as much as I can say. And then we probably need a lot more FAQ page, about us, different types of informational pages probably at the bottom. And then I have a huge wish list of things that I would like to have if you're really hungry. But it's fun because we've got work on there already. We've got people that are sensitive about us getting this right, so they don't have all their work deleted. And if you want, like I said, I'll tweet out. You guys can tweet out my info, and hopefully we'll get some interest.
Okay, great. Sounds great. And be sure to come by and say hi during the weekly meetings as things progress. Benjamin, thanks.
Sure.
Thanks a lot for coming by. Yeah, the idea with these websites, we're about to take a look at a website that the Internet Archive has. But the idea is having an open access alternative to be able to publish and share things and have a whole community. And Papermache is one way to do that. And it's whether you're a web developer, whether you actually want to work on the search engine or outreach or the community, it sounds like there's a lot of different opportunities there for people to build out. So thanks a lot for coming by, Benjamin. Appreciate it.
Thanks. It was my pleasure.
Great. So a couple more things here before we do our little switch between 11:30 and 11:45 to our speaker stream. I wanted to take a look. Grant, go ahead and bring up the Internet Archive Scholar website. Okay, it's up. I don't know. Okay, so I'm gonna watch the stream to see it so I can see what y'all are seeing. Okay, great. So this is an alpha site. This is not a finished site, but it is up now and ready for feedback. And so go ahead and type in neuroscience in their grant just to give people an idea of what it looks like. Go ahead and type in something in the search. Okay, great. Sorry. And so we have on the invite, we have a direct link to this, and I'll also tweet it out in a second as we start tweeting out more hackathon things. But the idea is to give us some feedback, give the Internet Archive feedback on what you think of the site. There are 25 million academic journal articles that they have cobbled together at this point in different ways. These are papers that the authors wished them to be available. There's all sorts of different wheeling and dealing going on now between the authors and the different academic publishing houses for making things available. Often authors are not able to make their own work available in a timely manner. And I'm actually going to be putting up the open source panel from last year where Elliot Harmon and Brewster and some other people talked about all the different levels now of open source academic publishing, and it's a really exciting time. So this is something that you can do. Another hackathon project is to give the Internet Archive feedback on the site, and I wanted to make sure that that y'all knew where that was. So the last thing we're going to listen to on this stream is a clip from the Ethical Algorithms panel in 2017 with Chelsea Manning, Carolyn Sinders, and Christian Lum from HRDAG, the Human Rights Data Analysis Group. And they're talking about the same subject that Cory Doctorow is going to be talking about in his early onset Oppenheimer's talk that's at 1:30 today, Pacific time. And the idea is that technologists exercising ethics where the corporations are not going to, and standing up, realizing the power that we have, and if we're not willing to build this unethical tech, then maybe it won't get built. And so it's just a different way of thinking about stuff. And this clip I'm going to show you is actually from 2017. Chelsea had only been out of prison for several months when this panel took place, and she was already right away concerned, literally before she left prison. I used to talk to her on the phone every day in prison. She was very concerned about how everyone was allowing the phones to sort of take over our lives in this dystopian way that we used to be concerned about, but everyone seemed to be just doing it without thinking about it in 2017. Well, a lot has happened between now and then, and people are concerned now, to say the least, and trying to figure out what to do. And so I thought it would be nice to look back at this sort of flashback clip from 2017 and to get a little advice on the issue from Chelsea and Caroline and Christian. And then we're going to take a break from the stream. We're going to switch over to a speaker stream and take 20 minutes to distribute that and make sure everybody has it before we come back at noon for the speakers to start. And I just want to reiterate all the great speakers that we have today. Brewster Kale, of course, will be speaking. Tracy Jaquith will be coming on after him. And then we have Dr. Jonathan Borden, who's a neurosurgeon using robotic technologies for spine surgery. He actually upgraded the name of his talk to Cybernetics, Cyberspace, and Cyber Surgery. Then we have Cory Doctorow with the early onset Oppenheimer's talk. We'll have a State of the Drop talk from the lead programmer of Secure Drop, Mikhail E. We have Danny O'Brien, Director of Strategy from the EFF, talking about the People's Pollster, which is another of Aaron's prototypes. And with all of this going on around polls and how unreliable they are, it's not that polls themselves are inherently unreliable if they're conducted correctly, which means that, of course, they would need to be transparent how they were conducted. And what if we used good technology, did everything transparently, and asked good questions instead of bad questions from population samples with information that we're not even given? We really need a revolution in the way that polls aren't necessarily in the way they're conducted, but in the way they're presented. Right now, there's all these polls and all these different magazines and all these different TV shows. They never say how many people were polled. They never give a list of the questions they were asked. And when I learned about statistics, I was taught that a poll means absolutely nothing without those two pieces of information. You need to know the exact sample set. You need to know exactly the questions that were asked. And so could we get to a point where we actually have good polls and we know how they're being conducted and the poll data actually has meaning? Let's hope. Anyway, Danny's going to talk about that at 3 o'clock. Then Elliot Harmon is going to talk about the very timely situation with YouTube downloading that is taking place, where there's a plug-in YouTube DL for downloading that has come under fire. And Elliot is the senior activist at EFF, and he's going to explain why that plugin is perfectly legal and that it's actually stopping perfectly legal fair use practices that, for instance, the EFFs videos are under Creative Commons license, and they're perfectly happy to have people downloading their videos. So when does DRM start infringing on fair use? And the answer is pretty quickly. And Elliot will be talking about that. And then we have Mech Karpels and Drini from the Internet Archive talking about Open Library and all the new advances, and how to build a library in the matrix is the name of that talk. And Drini will be talking about Library Explorer, which is a new way to look through all the millions of books that are in the open library. And then we have Ryan Sternlicht, who's going to talk about privacy and security in virtual reality. So this is something that we were talking a lot about last year. And as you know, with the recent sort of fiasco with the Facebook launch in terms of forcing everyone to have an account and deleting some people's libraries of content when they were making that connection. And what does this really mean if we're going to be forced to have accounts that track us just to use our VR headsets? So he's going to talk about that. Freddie Martinez is going to talk about Clearview AI as the shady company tracking your face online. There really isn't a more succinct way of saying that. And then we're going to end with Madison Vialpando, who is a privacy advocate, and do the talk that Dave was telling us about when cops get hacked and what we learned from a decade of law enforcement breaches. So I just wanted everybody to know about what's going to be starting at noon. I'll be talking about the resources that you can look at. It's a short list, really, of really important developments over the last 7 years that I have been kind of put my little detective hat on, and I've been trying to put the pieces together about what really happened in Aaron's case. You can read the blog post I wrote about that. Aaron would have been 34 years old today, but I'm going to go over that really quickly at the beginning before I start handing it over to our illustrious speakers. So we're going to watch this clip. It's just about 10 minutes long to end up this and get us warmed up for trying to think ethically on our own, trying to think about what we do when we build things, about the implications of what we build, about who the technology that we're building might affect. And it's not just the intended consequences, it's the unintended consequences, really the ones that often aren't thought about, aren't considered when tech is getting built. And again, you go to work one day and your boss has this horrendous thing they want you to build. You don't have to do it. You don't have to make a big deal out of it and expose them and do everything publicly in such a way that your life is now inconvenienced either. I might suggest that you find a safe way to upload the information over a secure drop connection to one of the many news organizations that use secure drop, and then figure out how you're going to move on in your life from this company that is now asking you to do unethical things. There's no reason why you have to quit your job immediately and blow up your life over these people. You can get the information to the right people and move on. Maybe you move on first and then get the information over secure drop to a journalist several months after you've moved on. You have to think about how it's going to look and what's safest for you and your family. And you may decide to just move on and not contact anyone about it, but you're not going to build it, and you may be able to do things to stop the project, to stop it from being built. So that's what we're talking about. But I just want to make it clear that I'm never asking anybody to publicly throw everything live, make everything public, and throw your life upside down, because it's not something that passes, frankly. You can become a target of the government and you get to be one for the rest of your life. And it's no fun. And we're certainly not advocating that people do that. So you need to think about, how can you not participate? How do you want to not participate? And then maybe what could you actually do to influence the situation, maybe so the thing could not get built? And how can you even think about that? And that's what Corey's going to talk about. So right now, Chelsea Manning and Carolyn Cinders and Christian Lum are going to talk for 10 minutes from this ethical algorithms panel at Aaron Swartz Day back in 2017. And then we'll end the stream and we'll be tweeting out the new links for the speakers. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Easy way to tell right away if we just shouldn't even pay attention to some study or something because it hasn't used one?
I feel less knowledgeable on verifiability of data sets and data models and algorithms from an academic standpoint. But from like an industry standpoint, often those are not the questions I find people asking in a conference room or in a conference call of, well, like, how sure are we that it's true? It's more, we've gotten these results and people have purchased this much of it, or, you know, it's selling really well. Because we're in the age of people building software as a capability, software as a product, APIs as a product, meaning like you buy access to an API that's like a pipeline. And if it's returning certain results that a company can then use and put into a portfolio to sell to other different kinds of clients, like, it doesn't actually really matter how much it works if it has the appearance of working, if it's pumping out results. So I can't speak to like academic verifiability of different kinds of APIs. I can speak to that I have not ever heard people really talk about that.
Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify, so it is an important thing that there is a verifiable data model, and it is not always done.
Totally, but then oftentimes you have to ask, like, what are the questions even that are being used as like the methods of verifying what you're looking at? Like, what are those questions, right? And this is where I think it's like academia is so important, because this can be debated in the academy, this can be debated in different academic spaces and institutions. People write responses to papers and other papers, and this happens all the time. I think there is a big push, though, for if you work in industry software to really understand like the ethical ramifications of the products you're using, or like the software that you're using, and how it affects your users, and how this affects even like unintended bystanders, people that have not opted into the system or into the product, right? And that's where you get into like different surveillance systems, or different systems that are like in the whole vein of like the Internet of Things, right? How many people are accidentally a part of a data set that they didn't get to opt into?
And so I think when, you know, lay people, for example, want to talk about whether your data is reliable or verifiable or whatever, or accurate, I don't think they're often thinking about it in the same way that I do, which would be representative. Like in the crime example, did everyone who, say, committed a crime have the same chance of ending up in that data? I think it often is more in the context of if this person's age was listed as age 25 and his, you know, date of birth was whatever would correspond to 25 years ago, was that recorded accurately, right? Was the geotag recorded accurately? Was the circumstances surrounding why the officer was there recorded accurately? And in many cases, you know, that can all be correct. I think when people think about this sort of reliability or, you know, going and verifying each record, those details can all be right. Each record can be completely accurate, but that's not to say that the data set as a whole is accurate from the standpoint of representativity, right?
Totally.
The standpoint of everybody who, and I'm using this word very loosely, should have been in the data set actually is.
Or is a company even using the algorithm in the way that it was intended to be used? Like how many times do people or companies purchase an algorithm that's designed for one kind of analytics and they're using it for a completely different thing, right? Like, and then you get these completely skewed results.
Absolutely, yeah.
And as long as they like the results,
yeah,
no harm, no foul kind of thing?
Yeah, I've had experience with this in particular in my own experience, but like for verifiability of data, like, you know, it's purely academic, and that's what I found, is that, you know, like when you're working in like a corporate or, you know, a business setting, or whether you're working in a government setting or a military context or whatever, like the results, like it is not based on that. Nobody cares how verifiable the data is. Everybody's cutting corners. Everybody's trying to meet deadlines, and, you know, that's why we as people in technology, that's why we need to be thinking more ethically. Why we need to like be very cognizant of the systems that we're building, and not just sitting there continually meeting deadlines and like meeting, you know, priorities that are set by our leadership, or, you know, by clients, or by, you know, like by senior corporate, you know, like you know, C-suite people. Like, you really need to like think like what you're doing, what the consequences of what you're doing are, because these are not questions that are happening, and they should be happening. And in many cases, you know, for some of these systems, maybe even the question of whether we should even be doing a system like this at all, you know, is a very, you know, it's a question that should be at least asked, you know, in some of these rooms.
Totally.
You know, it's not. You know, but it's, yeah, and it's not going to be. And you know, and I from a political perspective, you have to also view a lot of this stuff from a political perspective. Some of the leadership and some of the people and some of the politicians and some of the, you know, like more politically oriented senior personnel that you have in institutions, they don't care. They know it's, you know, you can tell them it's messed up. You can tell them the data's skewed. They don't care as long as it fits within the results and they still have their job or they get reelected. Like, they don't care as long as the data, you know, as long as the data is churning out results. So there's an incentive part where their incentive is not to create algorithms that are better, you know, for everybody, or it is to enforce rules and laws and like systems that benefit them over somebody else.
Totally. In some cases, I think act as a bit of a sponge for accountability, because now if you have this system, say, that you've purchased or that's been created by peer-reviewed science or whatever, or, you know, very expensive technology, and it's telling you to do the thing you wanted to do anyway, well, now I think it's, you know, you have something to point to and say, oh, we're, say, over-policing this community, but hey, the software that we've spent all this money on is telling us to do it. And so I think it can act as a little bit of a buffer between being able to question, like, well, why are you doing that, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think we can do for these people? I mean, to stop these people? They're powerful, their companies are getting bigger, no one seems to care that they're selling snake oil as long as the money's coming in.
Yeah, me personally, I think that we in technology have a responsibility to make our own decisions in the workplace, wherever that may be, and to communicate with each other, share notes, talk to each other, and like really think about what take a moment, think about what you're doing. What are you doing? What is, like, are you helping? Are you harming things? Like, is this worth it? You know, is this what you really want to be doing? Are deadlines being prioritized over, you know, are results being prioritized over good, you know, results? Should we do something? And, you know, I certainly made a decision in my own life, you know, to do something, and it's going to be different for every person. But, you know, like, you really need to make your own decision as to what to do, and you don't have to act individually. We can work as a community. We can work as a collective entity. Like people in technology, we're not going to be able to explain to people, you know, all this stuff, because like people know everything's messed up, and they know that things are messed up because of the algorithms that we have. We've educated them on that. They understand that. They understand that viscerally because they see it. They see the consequences and the results of what these things are happening every day. The problem is that people in technology aren't paying attention, and even some of us who are paying attention aren't doing anything about it. And we're waiting for somebody to do something about it. And it's not like somebody else is going to do it. We're going to have to do it ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is like understanding that even if you feel like a cog in the machine as a technologist, you aren't. Like there are other people that are like you and trying to protest the systems you're in. I mean, I think if we look, especially in the past year, we've heard rumors of like widespread groups and meetings of people inside of Facebook, inside of Google, really talking about the ramifications of the United States presidential election, of questioning like, how did this happen inside these platforms, of wanting there to be even accountability inside of their own companies. I think it's really important for us to like think about that for a second, that that's happening right now, that people are starting to organize, that they are starting to ask questions. I think especially like looking at where we are right now in San Francisco, inside of us, like the hub of Silicon Valley, we're in a space where is very amenable to protest. It's very amenable to supporting like ethical technology. How do we build more support for other people? Is it going to spaces we're not usually in? Is it going to other tech meetups? Maybe. Is it having hard conversations with other technologists? Probably. How do we push like the politics of our community into the wider spread community? We have to go and actually evangelize that.